and the way of thy precepts. So shall I talk of thy wondrous works. My soul melteth for heaviness. Strengthen thou me according to thy word. Remove from me the way of lying, and grant me thy law graciously. I have chosen the way of the truth. Thy judgments have I laid before me. I have stuck to thy testimonies. O Lord, put me not to shame. I will run the way of thy command.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing today in the book of Psalms. A funny thing happened to me on the way to the line by line Bible study this morning. I had noticed I got struck. I got a strike on my channel, a content strike. And, it's funny. Immediately I was like, oh gosh, did I finally go over the edge? Was all that talk about Jesus coming and the blood to the horses brought, which is just too much graphic content, too much talk about death and destruction and all that stuff? No. It was struck because of vaccine misinformation, apparently, which is either because I know the information I was talking about was based on publicly available published studies that are, whatever. I must have either crossed a line where I offered too much of an opinion about it, or perhaps maybe I got the information a little wrong because I wasn't, it's not something I sit around, brushing up on all my, I'll watch stuff, but I'm kind of busy with other things, so I don't have a lot of sterling, precise information on that subject. So I'm definitely gonna, try to avoid that a little bit. Whatever. Hopefully it won't come up. If it comes up, I'm going to talk about it. Because the thing that annoyed me is that I violated the consensus, which is a problem. Because how can you determine what a consensus is if everyone who disagrees with it is not allowed to say anything? And I understand it's the consensus of the experts. Unfortunately, the experts are all paid for the people who are asking what the consensus is. Meaning the pharmaceutical companies are the ones who are pushing the consensus. So, whatever. I'm not going to offer any more about it except that I think it's a dangerous precedent to set to prevent any kind of discussion by the public of something when the information is being so carefully shepherded and stuff. It's like that's not a safe. You're not keeping people safe by protecting them from too much information, even if it is misinformation, even if it is, is that right? There's so much misinformation already out there. The Ukraine war. I mean, anyone who mentions the ghost of Kiev, are they being censored? Anyone who mentions the 13 who didn't die on the island, if they said that they did die, are they being censored? They should be. I mean, for safety, right? Safety is in letting people speak and letting fools be fools and letting the wise be wise. I don't think anything good comes from censorship in any direction. So I'm not sure exactly what I said. I'm going to go back to that study and look and see if I can edit it to get out the offending piece of whatever, and so they'll accept it. I'm going to appeal it, but I'm going to look at what I said. Make sure I approve of what I said, because if I made a mistake that I am, that's over the line, then I'll be like, okay, that was too speculative or whatever. I mean, whatever. I should be able to speculate all day. I should be able to say that it kills puppies. I should be able to do whatever, as far as I'm concerned. If I wrote a song about it, they wouldn't touch it, probably, because that's art. I hope they wouldn't touch it. I was thinking about writing songs about more songs about things people don't want to hear about. Anyways, okay. So let's go into Psalm 60. Anyway, so we're that study, if you're missing it, it'll be back eventually. I'll do something to make sure it gets back up, because that part of the study was definitely not essential. I can cut that out. Even though like I said, I thought I was going to be in trouble for something I did that was actually important to me, which it is. Though I think that is important. The question of the safety of all that. They say it's all safe. Okay. It's all safe, just like you say, boss. Just like you say. All right. Miktam of David to teach. When he strove with Aram Naharaim, and with Aram Zobah, when Joab returned and smote of Edom in the valley of Salt 12,000. Now, first of all, Miktam means engraven, right? And this is engraven to teach. Interesting. So it doesn't say. Remember, there's Miktam, and then but prior to that we had a few Meskil, which meant instruction. But this is to teach. It's a different word. It's funny because they don't use that. I'm surprised they don't have the Hebrew word. Miktam, I say engraven, but that's not what it means, though. You know what I mean? It's kind of the meaning behind it, but it's not obvious. Like they said, they think it's a musical term because it's not used like that throughout the language. And I suppose this word to teach, though, is. Now, this incident here, I couldn't find any. I looked at different stuff in Second Kings and in First Chronicles, and actually Second Samuel, not Second Kings. Second Samuel, First Chronicles, looking for stuff related to this. Couldn't find anything that was. What I did find was not going to add much to the conversation about what this is about. It's not going to add to our understanding. Nothing I found that a lot of times it's like I thought, I could tell what the story, but it's just basically when he strove with Aram, basically hard battles and victory. And so we'll just read it and then we'll talk about it. O God, thou hast cast us off. Thou hast scattered us. Thou hast been displeased. O turn thyself to us again. Thou hast made the earth to tremble. Thou hast broken it. Heal the breaches thereof, for it shaketh. Thou hast showed thy people hard things. Thou hast made us to drink the wine of astonishment. Thou hast given a banner to them that fear thee, that it may be displayed because of the truth. Selah. That thy beloved may be delivered, save with thy right hand, and hear me. God hath spoken in his holiness. I will rejoice. I will divide Shechem. God hath spoken in his holiness. I will rejoice. I will divide Shechem, and mete out in the valley of Succoth. Gilead is mine. Manasseh is mine. Ephraim also is the strength of mine head. Judah is my lawgiver. Sorry. All right, go away. Actually, I don't need that later. Judah is my lawgiver. Judah is my lawgiver. All right. Moab is my washpot. Over Edom will I cast out my shoe. Philistia, triumph thou because of me. I can't leave that. Over Philistia, triumph thou because of me. Who will bring me into the strong city? Who will lead me into Edom? Wilt not thou, O God, which hast cast us off? And thou, O God, which didst not go with our armies? Give us help from trouble, for vain is the help of man. Through God we shall do valiantly, for he it is that shall tread down our enemies. So, all right, whatever this inscription at the beginning says, the meaning is actually clear, that this is not, when Joab returned and smote in the valley of Edom 12, that's not really what he's writing about. He's writing about the striving with Aram Naharaim. This is some sort of, I think this is more of a reference to time, like to the timing. David was writing of his striving with Aram Naharaim. Maybe I should just stick with Aram Zobah. I'll just talk about Zobah. Aram Zobah. When he was, and now my Bible said that was probably Mesopotamia and Syria. I don't know. These are probably proper names or titles of, we have Aram Naharaim and Aram Zobah, whatever. But essentially, we get the idea from the psalm that it was an enemy which they came against, which he strove with, but did not beat. Joab returned and smote and Edom in the valley of Salt, sure, but that's not who David was striving with. And I don't really see any, yes, in God we will have the victory, and through God we will do valiantly. The doing valiantly is not the same as victory. You know what I mean? Because you can be valiant in your defense, the valiant defenders to the last man. You don't have to, all it means is you have to be brave and willing to stand. O God, thou hast cast us off, thou hast scattered us, thou hast been displeased. O turn thyself to us again. David if it was Mesopotamia, he was in battle far afield, far out in his empire, because Israel reached its greatest extent under David and Solomon, as far as the size, and their influence. It was a small empire, really. I mean, with they had garrisons in the nations that were nearby, like Moab and Edom, and those nations were vassal states to Israel. So when he goes out to battle and then does not have success, he is hey, you've cast us off, God. I'm not finding the success that I'm used to. And that's how, here's the thing. I set out to do a lot of things in life. I go out to, we have work, like whatever you do to earn money. That kind of work. Then there's just work for work's sake. Maybe you got to take care of things, to maintain things. Laundry's got to be done. Food's got to be cooked. Car's got to be maintained. Right? And in the Lord, I have gifts that I want to use. So I got to do things. I got to write songs. I got to do Bible studies. I have a sense that there's an obligation to use whatever gifts I have to the extent that I'm able, and to whatever measure God has poured out for me to do, His will. Hopefully, I'm trying to be attentive to that. Right? And as I'm doing that, I take on many different tasks, and they're not all obviously right or wrong. I mean, what I'm saying is, like, there are many innocuous things in life we do. It's not like, I wanted to, God's stopping me from doing something bad that I shouldn't do, whether it be hurting myself or others, whether it be whatever, any kind of sin. It's not always because of sin. Sometimes we go to do things and there's no obvious right or wrong, but our efforts are futile. We become frustrated in our attempts to accomplish things. David went out to fight, and he strove with Aram Naharaim, and wasn't successful. Unsuccessful campaign. Not like a humiliating, crushing defeat, but like we left. We left. They kept the battlefield. We went home. So they pushed and they were, not successful. Not exactly tear out all your hair and dress up in, sackcloth, but it's like God was not with us today. I went out to do something, and every purpose was frustrated. It was just every purpose. I've had days like that where I'm trying to do something, trying to get something done. Nothing that's obviously sin or anything like that. Nothing that you would think like God would try to prevent me from doing it. Maybe even be a necessity, something I need, or I think it's necessary. If it was life and death, and it was the Lord preserve us from all calamities, in that case. But, this isn't that level of a calamity either. So it's like maybe the earth has trembled. You've broken it. Heal the breaches thereof, for it shakes. I mean, that it hasn't been. It's like it says. It's a rumbling. My going has not been smooth. Yeah, we saw hard things. We had to drink the wine of astonishment. When a lot of times they put stuff in a saying like that, like wine of astonishment, because when you go into a state of astonishment, it's like entering an altered state of consciousness, like wine. It's like what? It's like if you've never been stunned, it's like being. Have you ever been in a situation where it was so stunning that it was like being drunk? I remember when I was in the hospital at 2 a.m. with my wife, and the surgeon was in there explaining the surgery they were about to do to our infant son, and the probability of very likely possibly death and all that. And I remember my wife is like nearly and I'm like, it's like you feel very affected by circumstances sometimes. Like the sea and the waves roaring when Peter walked on the water with Jesus. Sometimes the going is not easy. Sometimes God shows us hard things. I've taken some hard things, not as hard as some. God, thank God. I don't want to, everything has challenges. Like it says, the poor man, that he doesn't have the same problems that the rich do. And in fact, the Bible is often very like, woe to you, rich. It's not considered a good road to be on, to have all these riches to deal with. Because the temptation to be awful is great. I mean, just look at all the millionaires and not the millionaires, because millionaires doesn't really mean anything anymore. Look at all the billionaires. People are complain about them and about what they do. And it's like even when they mean well, it's so hard to with that much power, and when you do something that big, to get it right, to do well. You know what I mean? Because so many good intentioned things go so wrong. And there's so many people out there who think they're trying to do the good thing. So many well-intentioned. That's what they get, billions of dollars, and that's what they think. I'm going to go do good for everybody. And say, I wish you would just stay home. Because they're not content to spread the money around to all kinds of people who might do good with it. They have to keep it all to themselves so they can do some big thing so they can be the author of the goodness, if there's going to be. They want, it's that they want to be Jesus. They want to be Moses. They want to be the savior of all mankind. And you won't be. It won't be. The only thing you can become in that case is an antichrist. I mean, the only thing a man can become by striving to be a Messiah is to become an Antichrist, or maybe the Antichrist if that was the case. I mean, if it was the case that the Antichrist was merely a man. He's not merely a man, but he could appear to be merely a man. I never take that off the table either, even though I favor the view that he's going to be more supernatural than normal. Maybe alien even. I don't mean like alien like reptiles. I just mean like to be not of this world. I mean, human in appearance, yes, but not. I don't think he will appear to be. I don't know. I guess I don't expect him to appear to be flesh and blood. Could be wrong. That could be very wrong. See, Thankfully, there's no religious misinformation. Thankfully for that. Because then we might get in trouble with the consensus authorities. Okay. It's interesting. And it's like the people you can't question and cross are the ones that have power over your life. It's funny because, I'll tell you what. I'm allowed to believe whatever I want. Still can't take that from us. Not yet. Wait. Heal the breaches. Okay. Thou shalt thy people hard things. The wine of astonishment. We've been in a state of astonishment. We've been taking it hard here. You have given a banner to them that fear thee, that it may be displayed because of the truth. And it pauses there. Now, it's all bad. And then it says, thou hast given us a banner. Them that fear you, you've given them a banner. A banner to display. Like Jesus says, light a candle to put it under a bushel. And you sure don't make a banner up to put it in a drawer or hide it somewhere. It's to be displayed. It's for everyone to see. You know what I mean? That's the point of a banner. That's what I was talk about in prophecy and stuff. You gotta be practical in a lot of understanding. What is a trumpet for? It's a signal. What is a banner? It's a sign. You got to show it. That's the point. So God in the Spirit has given to those that fear Him a banner, something to march under. Something to carry. Something to display because of the truth. We have something to carry forward. We have a reason to fight. Oftentimes, that's what the banners are. They carry their flag. I'm carrying this flag. This is why I'm fighting. This is my country. I'm fighting for my country. I'm fighting for my flag. And God has given us a banner that we have something to fight for. I'm fighting for God's kingdom. I carry His banner. I do His work. I come in His name. I have all those things. I come in the name of Jesus. And I've got His banner about me. And the war will be made. And the enemies can come against us. And it says even in prophecy, it's got to be known, we will march out with the banner, and the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit will make war against us, and shall overcome us and kill us. That's what's happening. That's what's coming. If the end, if you should live to see those days. But that's what's coming for sure. Just as surely as Christ comes, so also the death of His servants comes. That thy beloved may be delivered. Save with thy right hand and hear me. He's given us a banner, and the banner is Christ. And what does that mean? Well, Christ is our banner. The banner that is over us is Christ and His love for us and His promise to us that He will raise us from the dead and save us from death itself. From the corruption of the grave, we will be delivered into the freshness of life, into the newness of a new birth. He will deliver His beloved. He will save with His right hand. He will hear us. We have setbacks, we have defeats, but we carry God's banner, and so in the ultimate, we cannot be defeated. We cannot be defeated. The banner will be raised again, and forward we will march. God hath spoken in His holiness, I will rejoice. I think that means that God's, I will rejoice. I will divide Shechem and mete out the valley of Succoth. The earth is God's. I will divide. I will select what goes to who, and who is over what. And I will rejoice. I'll give out what I want to who and when and where and what. If I want you to lose right now, you lose. I'll split things up my way. Gilead is mine. Manasseh is mine. These are locations in Israel. Ephraim, because remember, Ephraim is a geographical location as much as it is a tribe. Like I said, the tribes were not forbidden from marrying. Your tribe association often is more about husband, wife. I don't even know how they figure it exactly. Like my kids are, people think of me as Italian, even though I'm only a quarter. But because of the last name. And because I bear some resemblance, with olive skin and all that stuff. Even though I'm mostly not. And my children, most of them don't look at all but they're associated with that tribe, so to speak. Even though, so I don't know how they do it in Israel. Like I want to say, like, I know that with the Jews sometimes it's like with the mother or something like that. It's like matrilineal, or I don't know. Ephraim also is the strength of mine head. I think I keep reading that hand because that's more normal, and it's weird. And if it wasn't Hebrew, I would assume that they'd just gotten the letters wrong. It was really supposed to be hand. The strength of my head. Judah is my lawgiver. Well, I guess if I think of the strength of my head, it goes into lawgiver next. And so I'm like, okay, is that a intellectual strength? Or is that referring more to protective strength? Like a helmet. You know what I mean? Like a helmet is the strength of your head. Protecting your head. Because the head is a weapon. If you don't know that, then you better be careful if you get in a fight. And remember, that head is a weapon too. So you got to be careful of people's heads. Because headbutts can come out of nowhere. And it is a great first move. Judah is my lawgiver. Ephraim also my strength of mine head. So I don't think it's talking about headbutts and stuff like that. I'm not sure. Okay. So... But God's saying, I have possession. Moab is my washpot. Now, over Edom will I cast out my shoe. Apparently, I was just, as I was glancing over this in my other Bible, it says, this is an idiom for taking possession. Casting out your shoe. I guess it's, empty your shoe, right? Because imagine... I know it's not all desert in the Middle East, but when you walk around outside without socks on and with sandals or shoes in general, especially without socks, have a nice way. I don't know if you've ever noticed when you wear socks, if you go someplace where there's dirt, when you take off like dust and stuff, when you take off the shoe, you can see that there's a ring around your sock that prevents all the stuff from getting down into the shoe. When you don't wear socks, you may remember as a kid, your shoes tend to fill up with stuff because stuff slips down between your foot and the shoe. And so, if you walk around a lot and are busy in a work day, perhaps, you can get a lot of stuff. So you go home at the end of the day and you empty out your shoe. And so the place where you empty out your shoe is your home. It belongs to you. Emptying out your shoe on someone else's property would be considered sort of bad form. I wouldn't go to someone else's house and take off my shoe and start emptying it. That's what I would do at my own house. It's kind of like home behavior, So it's kind of a weird idiom, I know, but there you go. Moab is my washpot. Over Edom will I cast out my shoe. But again, it's like it's my domestic stuff. It's mine, my stuff. It's where this is Edom. It's like that's where I dump out my shoe. And Moab, that's where I wash my stuff. That's mine. That's my washpot. Philistia triumphed thou because of me. That's not right. It should be over Philistia. Because it's turning to the enemies of God's, to the traditional enemies of Israel. Moab, Edom, the Philistines. And he's not saying, oh, Philistines, you can trust in God and you can be saved. Though there are places where I could make that case and it wouldn't be wrong. Turn thou to the Lord and he will make peace with you. That exists. But it's not what it's talking about here. It's talking about over Philistia, thou shalt triumph because of me. Meaning, you're going to have, everything belongs to me. Gilead is mine, Manasseh is mine, Ephraim is mine, Moab is my washpot, Edom is my place where I dump my shoe out, Philistia, over Philistia, you will triumph because of me. Who will bring me into the strong city? Who will lead me into Edom? Will not thou, O God, which has cast us off? I do everything I think by the leading of the Lord. But then when I go try to do something, I think God is not with me. Or not with this project. But I know. It reminds me of what I told my son when he was wrestling. When he was young wrestling, I said, I can't promise you that by prayer you will win. But I can promise you that you won't win without it. And not really. You need to pray to God And that, like, because I believe in the heritage of the Lord for my children, I know that if they don't turn to God, God will get their attention for my sake. And he will bring them to himself for my sake. Because the children are holy, because the root and branch are holy, essentially. And that the child is, even when there's one believing spouse, the children are sanctified by that. And but when it's when two pull together, who can really stop them? Who can really prevent their will, except God be in it? As far as when I'm talking raising children, who can, no one, if you work together, and you don't have them in school, basically, because that always makes things go wrong. Well, I don't know, I wouldn't know how, starting with a little 5-year-old, how you're going to send them off to the Lord of the Flies. And I get it now why some people just do the high school. I always thought that was a bad time to send kids, but I get it. It's a better time because they are, even though they're still totally immature, they're much more mature. And they can kind of handle the environment and understand it for what it is. Okay. Oh, yeah. You have cast us off. Okay. And thou, O God, which did not go out with our armies, who will bring me into the strong city? Who will cause me to have the victory? Well, it's God. Just because I didn't get the victory, he doesn't blame God for his lack of victory. Well, he sort of does that, but God wasn't with him. He knows that it's like, well, hey, it's not like God told me on this occasion, or whatever. I don't know what it is. It's like, sometimes God does tell us to go, and it doesn't go well. That happened too in the Bible. There was an incident where they went up to battle, and the prophets said, oh yes, go, and they kept getting smote because the purpose of God was to smite them. They were going up. It was when they were going up against an enemy that was obviously wicked, but they themselves had made no provision for their own sin. I mean, a city of men had been so given over; they'd committed a horrible rape and murder, and all Israel was gathered against them. And God said, "Okay," and they just went up to battle, and they were absolutely. I don't remember if God said go up or if He did. There was one occasion at least where God said, oh yeah, go ahead, go up. And they were smote. And I said, why? Because you yourself, sometimes we also need correction. Every purpose, it isn't just for our the purposes of God is not just our earthly victory, that we should endlessly be victorious and triumph over our enemies on the earth. We should ultimately triumph. But the purposes of ultimate triumph, God has his own way he wants that to work out. For our betterment. For us to become like him. Holy and righteous. To give ourselves over to righteousness and holiness. As opposed to the way we've given ourselves over to sin. This we can do through God's help, Give us help from trouble, for vain is the help of man. Through God we shall do valiantly, for he it is that shall tread down our enemies. We know that we need God to tread down our enemies, but he is abandoned. He was just very mad. But today he's not with us. Today he is not with us. At least not with this project. We know he's with us. We believe he is with us. He will make us to triumph. But in this matter, he is not with us. He is not giving us victory. And, David does not try to analyze it. As far as like, why, oh Lord, why, you've given us your banner. We've marched out and we lost. And, you're the one who's going to give us the victory. We will, through you, do valiantly. But not today. And we can't look to man for help. That's the thing, is in the times past. And that can be the thing. You know, do we look to men? You know, when we're frustrated in our purposes in the Lord, you know, is in that frustration. It's strange because, you know, there's no help that man can give. You can look to man for help, but they won't be able to do anything. You know, one of the things that truly trouble me, there's no man that can help. Only God can help. Because there's problems that are just too big for men, that no man can control or, you know, take ownership over. So, if this belongs over here, kind of makes sense, actually. Let me see. Yeah. If we're going to follow consistently like in Study 88, we put this subscription here. And it makes a lot of sense because Negan means smitings. You know? And that would be pretty much, you know, the smitings of they were smote. He was smote and Joab smote Edom. I think there is that Joab victory is in the subtext that God does make us to have victories, but not all the victories. Not all the victories we imagine. I mean, there are things that we will be defeated in. Even Christ himself being crucified, you know, remember. God spared not his own son. You know, he delivered him up for us all, but that's not just the end of it. It's like he's called us to offer ourselves a living sacrifice, and Christians throughout history have been called upon to pay up on that promise, you know, and lay their lives down, even for the sake of the Lord, their lives. I said lives. Let's go to Psalm 61. We got 23 minutes. That is a short psalm. We might get through it. And I don't have Psalm 62 up. I'm going to grab it real quick. Okay, I can tell at least I got sound on. I should have this nearby so I can just silence it if necessary. All right, hold on. All right, sorry about that. I had to sneeze there. That was probably obvious what was about to happen there. What was about to happen was he started moving his mouth up and down something strange. And then he went away and he sneezed. Oh, that mute button. I just got to remember to turn it off again. So we don't have great big silences. That's the first thing I think when I hear that phone ring. I'm like, oh boy. All right, Psalm of David. Hold on, clear. A Psalm of David. Hear me cry. Hear my cry, O God. Attend unto my prayer. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For thou hast been a shelter for me, and a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. I will trust in the covert of thy wings. Selah. For thou, O God, hast heard my vows. Thou hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. Thou wilt prolong the king's life, and his years as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. O prepare mercy and truth which may preserve him. So will I sing So will I sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. All right, sorry. Pretty good though, eh? The sinuses has gotten much better. think a byproduct of I was actually sick, and sitting up a little more erect in my chair tends to put the forward pressure or whatever. It's like somehow when I sit in the wrong position, I get a swelling inside my nostrils, which narrows the passages, and it's nice to be able to breathe and read. So, hear my cry, O God, attend to my prayer. Standard opening. We want God to hear our prayers. There's nothing wrong with asking. God, hear my prayer. And often I'll say, I confess, I try to be smarter than I'm always like, Lord, I know you always hear me. And Lord, I know you know that I know that you always hear me. No, I'm just kidding. I don't do that, but I do like to pray prayers that are not, that it's okay to feel forsaken or to feel like God's not hearing. God, why don't you hear my prayer? God, why don't you do that? It's okay to feel that way and even to pray that way. God is not offended. He understands your feelings. But I find it comforting to myself to know better and to pray better for my own sake, not for God's sake. God does not get offended when you say, oh, God, you never hear me. You never answer my prayers. I mean, it's not right. It's not true. But I don't think he's not turning his back on you because you're not praying right. I promise you that. As far as that goes. You can be praying amiss. You might be praying amiss. You might be praying for things that aren't good for you or that you don't want or, whatever. That's true. But your feelings oftentimes of being, God maybe not being as near as he really is, that is okay and genuine and understandable. Because it is not, we have to God has called us and now we must draw near to him. If we draw near to him, he will draw near to us. The closer we try to get to God, the more he will reveal himself to us. And then we will see him more in everything and also hear him more in everything and know him better in every way. But it's essential that we make that contact, and the more frequent, the better. Daily is essential. I mean, we need it. Not that your salvation is hanging on having a prayer every day or something like that. No. What I'm saying is you're going to find your salvation more effectual working for you in life as far as your relationship with God being growing and feeling like that part of your life is straight. I derive a great deal of comfort in my life having one, a good relationship with my wife, and two, a good relationship with my God. Not feeling like, oh, I need to pray to God more, or, oh, I need to do more Bible studies. Like doing the things that I think God wants me to do helps me feel good about my relationship with God. And it's a great comfort to feel, because a lot of times if you feel like you're not right with God, that's a bad feeling. That's not a very, it's a hard way to go through life. And having a good relationship with my wife, same thing. It's hard to go through life without a good relationship with your wife. That can be a miserable thing. The Proverbs are loaded with them. We used to laugh, right? Remember, we used to laugh. Better to live on the corner of a roof than with a contentious and argumentative woman, Better to live on the uppermost branch of a cedar tree, and I'm making them up now, than with a unpleasant woman. Yes, there are lots of problems. It's true. And I'm sure the same goes for husbands as far as wives are concerned. But we wrote the Proverbs, so it goes that way. I will be, for thou hast been a shelter for me and a strong tower from the enemy. From the end of the black crying, my heart is overwhelmed. Well, okay. Yeah. From the end of the earth will I cry, from my most extreme. Meaning in life we have to extend ourselves sometimes to do things. You know what I mean? Like I'm converting a building into usable space. It has like these trenches and there's this stuff, right? And so in the process of doing this stuff, I'm going to go into areas where I haven't gone before. And I'm going to extend myself to do things that are more than I've done. You know, the same thing with like the idea of campaigning in the earth, of like exploring to the far reaches, or being on far off campaigns as a king, on the frontiers of his kingdom, and defending his borders or expanding them. You know, from those ends of the earth, from where we are going, where we haven't been before, from the far off places, away from our comfort, away from normalcy. When we go to those places, thou hast been a shelter for me, and a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. I will trust in the covert of thy wings, Selah. Okay. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. You know, sometimes we feel overwhelmed, right? Of course, there's like the thing when we extend ourselves, it's too hard for us. You know, I've been in moments where I definitely felt overwhelmed. I remember one time in the wintertime getting stuck out on the road about a mile from my home in a drift of snow, and the snow was, you know, the car had drove up on it, and I was up on the snow. And the drift, I could look, it was a good 20 feet forward or more before I thought I could even get my wheels on. So I had to dig out about 20 feet car wide, and it was, you know, to the hood where I'd kind of run aground. You know, on a curtain, you know, about 2 feet of snow. And pretty dense too. Well, that's why I drove up on it. I just remember being out there. Well, I remember getting stuck, and I had the car full of groceries, and my bigger boys were off at my dad's. I just dropped them off, and there was nothing but little kids and mom at home. And I walked back to the house, and I got a shovel, and I walked back to the car in the blizzard. And I started shoveling. At one point, I just laid down, and I was like, you know, I think I want to just die. I remember just thinking, like, I think I just want to die. I lay there in the snow. I'm like, maybe this is it. This is it. Because it was pretty bad out, and, you know, all that. And I was just overwhelmed. I just didn't think, you know, I was just like, the task ahead of me, I was exhausted, and that it was the end of a long day. You know, I remember laying there for a couple minutes, and then I prayed. I got refreshed. I remember praying. And then I just got up and kept shoveling, and got the car out, and brought it home, unloaded groceries, you know. When we turn to the Lord in our distress, He leads us to something to cling to. You know, the idea of being overwhelmed makes me think of drowning. You know, that's a real good analogy for an overwhelming experience. We say, you know, it's up to my neck. It's up, you know, I've had it up to here. You know, the overwhelm analogy means where you're being flooded with something, where there's so much input coming into a system, and not positive input, but just often negative, right? And if you're being overwhelmed, then to have a rock to cling to that is higher, that can draw us up out of the things that overwhelm us, that can raise us above it. And that's what God does for us. He raises us above the things that destroy us, the things that overwhelm us. You know, He raises us up and sets us on our feet so that we can have victory over our enemies. He gives us shelter in the storm, a strong tower from the enemy. He protects us in that way. Now again, like I said, just like the last psalm, it doesn't mean like that's absolute. Like you can't, like, the devil shall overcome them and kill them. It's already written. The last act of this world age of God's servants is to get killed and be defeated outwardly. To at least to have the enemy just kill us in front of everybody and seem to win. Seem to win. We're going to have a big party. It's going to seem like he won. It's going to seem. Unfortunately. It will only seem. And then that which he hath, what he seems to have, even that will be taken from him. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. Again, God. What's interesting is God's place is often likened to a tabernacle, a tent. God is a strong tower, but he has a tent. He has a tent that is never taken down. It's interesting it's a tent because a tent speaks more of authority. It doesn't rely on the structure for its permanence. It's permanent because he's permanent. He gives it weight. A lot of times people build big monuments and stuff, and it's like to show their greatness or whatever. But God's original way of dwelling among men was through a tent. God dwelt in tents. That's why there's always this reference to a tabernacle, because it always started off with the tabernacle. God had not started off a temple. He never asked for a temple. It was something the people wanted to build. They wanted a temple. Well, the kings wanted to build it, obviously. And the people, though, they like things like temples and, statues, images of God. And that eventually all comes to be in Israel. Thou hast been a shelter for me, a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in thy tabernacle. I will trust in the covert of thy wings. There's another one, the wing as the protective thing. The way a bird protects its young under its wing. God is said to protect his elect with his wings. His wings, and what that means is when we turn to God for help, he is there to protect us and to give us covert from the wind and storm. It's just that's we can trust. If we are under God, if we stay in him, then nothing can harm us. Ultimately speaking, that is true, that nothing can harm us. Though we may seem to be killed, God will raise us up again. And therefore we will have life forevermore. And we cannot, and ultimately in that sense, we cannot be killed because God will not allow it to abide. For thou, God, hast heard my vows. Thou hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. Hold on. Okay. Sorry. Heritage of them that fear thy name. So then you have heard my vows, you have given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. And it says he gave a banner to those that fear his name in the previous psalm. I don't know how much. The psalms are placed in a particular order for a reason. We've discussed that when we talked about the Genesis book of the Psalms and the Exodus book to some degree. We're not going into a great deal of that because we're not interested so much in the scholarly side of Christianity as the practical side. What does this mean for me? So anyways, we didn't go over that. But or we did go over that a bit, but we didn't, we don't labor the point. But I just thought because it was so proximous, that may be part of why they brought them together. But thou hast heard my vows, and hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. When what it means is God heard my vows. A lot of times people would make vows to the Lord. Like I made a vow to the Lord. I said, God, if you spare my life, I will serve you for the rest of my life. And then I will serve you. I'll serve you for the rest of my life. Or something like that. I forgot the exact word. But that's basically what I said. And I immediately felt better. And so I thought my life was spared. Because I remember I thought I was losing consciousness. I was like, this is not good. This doesn't feel right. I thought, this is bad. This is not good. And I just turned to God. I'm like, oh God, save me. I think I did too much. I'm blah, blah, Then all of a sudden, things cleared up. I wasn't instantly sober, but the death feeling passed. It just passed from me. And all of a sudden I felt like, oh, I feel so much better. I felt normal again, at least normal in that sense. I didn't feel like I was on my way out the door. And I've passed off before. It was more than that. It felt so much more like death coming on. And here's the point. It doesn't matter if it really was or not. It's the fact that I believed it at the time. And I asked sincerely at the time. So I felt obligated ever since. And I followed up on that. And that's what when we promise God stuff, we should follow up on it. You don't make promises to God vainly or just flippantly. Say, God, I'll do this if you do that, Especially when it's if you do that and then he does it. It's one thing to say, God, I'll do this. He knows we screw that one up all the time. We are not able to make, Jesus' advice about this sort of thing was like, look, you can't make one hair on your head white or black. You can't add 1 cubit to your stature. You can't do nothing to change what you are. So don't make vows to God that you can't fulfill. You know what I mean? Don't think that by making a vow to God, it's somehow going to empower you to do something you couldn't do otherwise. And if you do make a vow to God, you better well pay it. You better well do what you said you were going to do, especially if he did what he said, what you asked him to do. If you say, God, if you do this, I'll do that, you better do it. Don't not do it. Not that, well, what if I didn't and then I can't make it up later? God forgives. It's not like the unpardonable sin. But, he knows our friend. He knows when we can't. Oh, God, I screwed that up, I mean, I can't say I screwed up saying service, though. I can't go back and say, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have offered myself in service. Somehow I feel like it would be he wouldn't accept that. I don't think he'd be cool with that. He'd be like, no. You meant it. You can't go back now. The heritage of them that fear thy name. We have a heritage. Those that fear God's name. Peter said it. In every nation, those that fear God and love righteousness, God honors them. God honors that. When people do the right and they fear God, and that they behave like they fear repercussions for things that no man is going to enforce on them. No one's going to stop. Like, there are so many things that I keep myself from that no one's going to stop me. No man's going to step in and stop me from sin. You know what I mean? So many things. I mean, there are some things that obviously men could stop me from. But there are so many things that just has nothing to do with man. They have no help. Those that fear God's name, we have the heritage, which is the fear of God. And that God's blessing is in that. That's the heritage of those that fear God's name, is that he blesses those that fear him. God has respect for them. He respects that because it is right to fear God. To understand, and meaning in the right, not like, oh, I'm terrified of God. No, but to understand that, just like I often use the example of like a live electrical wire, especially like a full power line, where it's like 220 volts, But, he is to be feared. And we love and trust him, and sometimes people have trouble reconciling those two things. Because it's not that kind of fear. It's not that I'm afraid of what he's going to do. He's so unpredictable. I'm scared of God. It's not that. You know what I mean? It's the way my kids aren't scared of me. Like when I walk into them, they're like, oh, he might hit me. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that. Oh, what's he going to do? That's people think that's fear. And that is a kind of a fear that's not good. Because it's a fear of someone being unpredictable, capricious, and willy-nilly in their handing out of violence and such. Obviously, such a person is a person that we might fear, but that's not the kind of fear we're talking about with God. It's if I do something wrong, what will he do? That's the fear. Or the fact that he, in some way, must do something about it. Because God upholds righteousness. God upholds holiness. So on some level, because that is something he has set for himself to be and do, he has an obligation to deal with wickedness when he has an obligation to wickedness, to punish it. And it doesn't have to be right away. He can defer punishment. Like I said, it's the whole white throne judgment waiting. So they will know. I mean, they will know. No one's going to go in the lake of fire wondering what happened. They'll know. They'll know. And then, I mean, to the degree that that they would probably want to, it does seem a bit pointless on a certain level. You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know how real that is, how literal it is. I've often wondered about that because I thought that there's kind of no point to it. Because I don't think it's about vindictiveness. I don't think God is vindictive. He takes vengeance. It's not the same thing. Vindictiveness, I associate with someone who has, the getting the, whereas the righting the wrong is not as important as that the person who did the wrong should feel the pain of it. It's an obsession with that, with wanting to make sure they're hurt. And so I don't think of God as that, kind of ensuring that they hurt. Though I think the average Christian, that's exactly what they think of God. Because nothing else can explain the traditional doctrine of hell other than an extremely vindictive nature of God. It is an extremely vindictive nature that cannot be satisfied ever. It cannot be satisfied. Meaning, there's no amount of pain which you can suffer which will ever satisfy him. He's always going to be craving more, because that's what they believe. Now, I don't believe that about God, but they don't believe it either, honestly, because they don't think about it. Because, like I said, most of the people I talk to, when I talk to them, they always want to apologize for hell. You know what I mean? And I do, not always, but there is an apologetic for hell. But I mean in a sense of want to be well, God, I understand, but it's all, I personally don't think it's great, I was thinking, I love when they set themselves up as being not as bad as God. Oh, okay. You're not as vindictive as God, I see. Well, that's nice. Yeah, I mean, if you believe those things, like I said, it puts God in a very vindictive position. Torturing him forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Thou wilt prolong the king's life in his years as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. I mean, it starts off like prolonging his life, and then his years as many generations, which is like a simile. And then he shall abide before God forever. It goes from long life to kind of a legendary life, like like generation spanning life, to everlasting life. And I think all of that is true. The king's life, David, was prolonged. He did live to a ripe old age. He died in peace. And the Lord's mercy did not depart from him. And the years of his kingdom were many generations. Right? The kings of Judah reigned for many generations, but they came to an end. But God had promised that David would not want a man to sit on his throne. And then came Christ. And he sits down at the right hand of God, ascended in the heavens forever. I mean, as far as his position is at the right hand of God forever, as far as that goes. Not that he won't come back again, he's ascended into heaven forever, but I meant that ascent, that going up, is a everlasting victory. His ascent and victory is an everlasting and eternal, not eternal, an everlasting victory. Thou wilt prolong the king's life, his years of measure. He shall abide before God forever. Prepare mercy and truth, which may preserve him. Our banner. Well, that was from the last one. He has given us a banner. Yeah, we're at the end, obviously, because that's a lot of studying. It was like the banner was way back there. All right. Okay. Mercy and truth. Mercy. The mercy of God preserves us. Truth also. Truth prevents us from false accusations, and mercy protects us from true accusations. God's mercy, because we need mercy and truth. We need the truth. We all know this is true. There's some things we like. Have you ever been desperate for the truth to be told about a situation because it was favorable to you? It's like, if only people knew the truth, I'd be in, they'd see that it was, I'm not guilty or whatever. The truth becomes so essential to your preservation when it's you. But there are other times it's like, oh God, I don't want the truth to get out. Because if the truth gets out, people are all going to think terrible things about me. That's why we need mercy. We need mercy and truth, because the truth has to come out. All of it has to come out. All the things done in this earth, there's no secret deeds. Every idle word that men have spoken, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment, it says. There's no hiding. Truth will out, and then there's only mercy that can save us. And that mercy is manifested in the person of Jesus Christ, in the sacrifice that he made on the cross when he shed his blood, that through faith in him we might have everlasting salvation, deliverance from sin, and also a relationship with God, a restored relationship with God that no one can take away from us, that nothing can come between you and God. When you enter into that relationship honestly and truly with your heart open to him, I can't see any other outcome. All right, so sing praise in your name forever, that I may daily perform my vow. Yeah, you got to perform the vows. He had daily vows. There were vows that I will offer this and that and the other. There's no offering we can make except our bodies as a living sacrifice. I didn't make a vow, God, I vow I'm going to do a Bible study every day. I just started doing a Bible study every day because I just prefer the yea is yea, nay is nay school of thought, which is the way Jesus taught us to go. Making extra vows and drawing God into it. I draw God into every aspect of my life already. I don't need to flourish all kinds of, attaching him onto everything because he already is there. I don't need to make a big deal about that. I just need to trust and know that he's with me and be mentally also engaged with him. All right, thank you for joining me this day. We look forward to being back again tomorrow. Until then, and hopefully they will not, whatever. I'll see what I can do about that other study. Probably not right away, but sometime this week I'll look at it and see if I can find the offensive material and excise it so they'll let me talk about Psalm. I just think it's hilarious. To me, it's funny. I thought I was in serious trouble. I'm not gonna be able to preach Christianity anymore because I thought there was something to do with my Christianity I forgot I talked about the what. Probably in more negative terms than I have, because I do think some certain things which I'm not allowed to say. Oh, I don't want to get my Bible study said. It's more important. The Bible study is more important to me than that particular issue. There's plenty of people talking about that particular issue. I don't have to talk about it. But I noticed I've said a lot about Dr. Fauci in the past, and that never got censored. So that's nice. It's nice to know I can say whatever I like about that scumbag. Okay? All right. It's cool. At least we still have that. We'll see if we can keep them from taking away all of our freedoms. Whatever. I'm free to go someplace else and stream, and I'm sure they'll let me talk if as long it'll be pay service and all that. Hey, it's free streaming and it works pretty good. So we'll have to play along a little bit, won't we? Well, until tomorrow, we'll see you then.
Make me to understand the way of thy precepts. So shall I talk of thy wondrous works. My soul melteth for heaviness. Strengthen thou me according to thy word. righteously. I have chosen the way of the truth. Thy judgments have I laid